Earth is well known for its diverse species, and humans since forever have been trying to better understand how these diverse creatures are related to each other. Things took a huge turn in history when first Carl Linnaeus developed a system of classification of organisms under kingdom, phylum, class, and so on and so forth, and this ultimately paved the road to modern taxonomy. Things took further heights when Charles Darwin made his famous voyage to the Galapagos Islands, which would in part inspire him to revolutionize biology with his theory of evolution by natural selection. And that brings us to this video. If you see, most of the scientific names for animal classifications, Mammalia, Aves, Hominidae, they are based in Latin and Greek. And this is not surprising, considering that pioneers of modern taxonomy were in fact European. But that being said, however, it would be nice if Indian languages could have taxonomic words in Sanskrit, not only to better suit our phonology, but also to preserve our culture. Superfamily is the taxonomic rank above family. In Latin, it's denoted by the suffix oide, which in Sanskrit we shall use rupa, meaning form. Sitting below the superfamily in taxonomic rank is family, and if you watched my previous Sanskrit taxonomy videos, you'd know that in Latin, the family suffix is ide, which in Sanskrit, I rendered it as maya. Even below family, we have subfamily, which in Latin is denoted by the suffix ine, and in Sanskrit, if you watched my previous videos, you'd know that I'd rendered it as atmaka. But we can get even more narrower. We have tribe, denoted by the Latin suffix ini, which in Sanskrit I have used the word sankasha, meaning resemblance. However, here's where things start getting a bit tedious. One of the most beautiful things about Earth is its diversity. There's so many different organisms with so many cool traits, all evolved, filling different niches. But that's also the problem. That means there's a lot of naming that we have to do. Now, before we actually move on, we have to understand briefly how taxonomy and cladistics work, and I'll give you a brief rundown. Now, assuming that most of you have some basic idea of evolution, I can expect that you definitely know that humans are related to chimpanzees and gorillas. Now look at this one single branch with its twigs. Here, I have denoted the base of this branch as Hominidae. Now all other twigs, or the lineages, man, chimpanzee, and ape, all those fall under Hominidae, and this is significant since all of these lineages originate downstream from the point called Hominidae. All these animals are called hominids, regardless of if it's a chimp, gorilla, or a human. Now the reason I mention this point is when we're coining a Sanskrit name for a scientific name of one of these clades, we have to make sure that it accurately describes almost every single one of the species in some way or form, because once you pick up a name, it applies to each and every animal without exception. Now let's talk about the first rule in my standard naming system. Say we have a group of organisms A, and we want to name the entire clade at this point after the group of organisms A. Since we're naming it from a lower taxonomic rank to a higher taxonomic rank, we use the word akriti, meaning form. Now, alternatively, and on only some occasions, we might use the word drish, meaning sight or appearance or looks. So if I say narakriti, that means having the form of a human, and I guess this is supposed to refer to chimpanzees or bonobos, our close relatives, which kind of look like us. This is where I wanted to use the word drish because in my system, drish contains ambiguity. So if I say naradrish, it means resembling a human because chimpanzees don't look like humans, but they just resemble them. Now on to the next rule of my naming system. Let's say we have a group of organisms B, and we want to name the group of organisms A. Now, B and A are sister groups. They're very closely related to each other. So we want to name A after B. And the way we can do that is with the prefix upa, meaning approaching or near to. And this is fitting because group of animals A are approaching or are very, very near to group of animals B. But they have to be sister groups. Now on to the third rule. This one is a prefix. To use this prefix, first consider the organism under group B. Now consider the organism under group D. Now what you'll notice is that the organism under group D are related to the organisms under group B, but not that closely related. You can think of this as the relationship between pythons and boas. Pythons and boas do look alike, but they're not that closely related. I mean, they are related, but not that closely related. And this brings us to one key rule to use this prefix. B and D must resemble each other, the way pythons and boas kind of resemble each other. Now, to name group D after group B, we use the prefix apa. Apa means away, or aside, or to the side. And this is fitting because on the taxonomic tree, group D is aside or away from group B, if you catch my drift. Now, onto the fourth and by far my most favorite naming convention in my naming system. Look at the organisms B and D. I want to name the clade containing their most recent common ancestor and all of its descendants after group B and D. Well, to do that, what I'm going to do is take the names of the animals B and D and then prefix it with sa, meaning together or with, and then suffix it with kulin, meaning having that as a family or with that as a family. Let's try an example. We have archosaurs, which are the group containing crocodiles and birds. So archosaurs would be sa nakra, meaning crocodile, pakshi, meaning bird, and then kulin, sa nakra paksha kulin. On the last naming convention in my system, say we have an organism and we want to name after it a similar looking organism that looks that way because it convergently evolved with the original organism, then we have to use the word anukara or anukriti, both of which means a copy or an imitation. Now, let's try an illustrated example. We have crocodiles and then a crocodile relative. Now, because they are sister groups as per this cladogram, we can use the prefix upa. So, crocodile in Sanskrit is nakra, and thus the crocodile relative would be upanakra.